Welcome everybody back to Clips and Tips, addressing a series on cycling laws brought to you during Bike Month by McLeish Orlando and Bike Law Canada. Today's topic, we're going to talk about helmets in Ontario. What is the law in regards to helmets? Firstly, in Ontario, who has to wear a helmet when riding a bike? And the first place we have to go is, again, the Highway Traffic Act. That's the provincial statute that tells us the laws regarding riding a bike. It says specifically under section 104, sub 2.1, sorry to sound all lawyer-like on this, but I did want to address it because once in a while you might want to go and look this up. But it says under that section that subject to subsection 103.1, which is in relation to power-assisted bicycles, which we're not talking about, no person shall ride or operate a bicycle on a highway unless the person is wearing a bicycle helmet that complies with the regulation and the chin strap of the helmet is secured fastened under the chin. And on the first impression when you read that section is you think, wow, everybody in Ontario has to wear bike helmets when they're riding a bike. But in fact, it refers to a regulation under subsection 104 sub 3. In that regulation, the minister may make regulations under 3 sub C exempting any person or class of persons from having to wear a helmet. So you got to go to that regulation. And when you get to the regulation, it's regulation 610. And in that, it's regarding safety helmets. And they say specifically, subsection 5 of the regulation, a person who is 18 years old or older is not required to comply with subsection 104, the one I just read, and therefore they don't have to wear a helmet. So under the law in Ontario, based on that regulation, people 18 years of older do not have to wear a helmet. Everybody else does, in the sense that if you're 17 or younger, you got to wear a helmet. And the regulation also says what type of helmet you have to wear. And so if you're going to wear a helmet and you have to wear a helmet, it has to comply with subsection 4, which says the helmet referred to in section 3 shall conform to the requirements of one or more of the following standards. And they list a whole series of standards, as you can see, that I've listed here. So for instance, on this helmet, I looked inside and I wanted to see whether or not what standard this helmet was, because in addition to not only having to meet that standard, if I was 17 years old, it also says the helmet shall bear the mark of the standard authority or the mark of the manufacturer showing the helmet meets the prescribed standard. So you actually, if you're buying and you have to have a helmet as a 17-year-old or younger, you want to look inside the helmet, take a look for the various standards. On this one, you probably can't see it, but there's a sticker that says this helmet complies with the CPSC safety standards for bicycle helmets. And so then I cross-reference it. It's one of the standards that's mentioned in the regulation. It's got the mark on it. It's a good helmet to use. So if you're 17 or younger, you have to wear a helmet and it has to meet those requirements. The only other thing you should also be aware of is in relation to helmets, it also states under section 104 that no parent or guardian for a person under the age of 16, for persons under the age of 16 years of age shall authorize or knowingly permit that person to ride a bicycle. And so really what that section is addressing is if you're a parent of a child and they are under the age of 16 years of age and they don't have a helmet, well, then you're going to be held responsible for that and you're going to receive the fine. So that responsibility for children lays on the parent or guardian to make sure the helmet's being worn. I've got my helmet here. I think the other thing that's important is about properly fitting a helmet. And certainly when you purchase a helmet, go to a respected bike store. They're going to have helmets on display. Have them help you in picking the size that fits the best. But when you're dealing with your kids or anybody else, make sure the helmet fits properly and is adjusted properly. Follow the 2v1 rule. And the 2v1 rule is just simply when you're making sure your helmet's fitting properly, you should have 2 fingers between your eyebrow and your helmet. The V is to make sure the straps, when you strap it up, form a V around the ears. So if you see that, you want a V around your ears. Well, the one finger should be one finger for the strap underneath your chin. If you're 18 and over and you're riding a bike and you don't have a helmet and you get into a crash, for instance, with a vehicle, a driver of a vehicle, can that have implications? Well, firstly, it's not mandatory that you wear a helmet, so it's not compulsory. It's not like a seatbelt, but they can, if you are hurt, make an allegation against you that you are what they call contributory negligent for your injuries because you weren't wearing a helmet. Now, this is a very difficult defense for insurance companies and defense lawyers to advance, because in order for it to be successful, they have to prove that the helmet would have had a significant impact on reducing the injury or preventing the injury of itself. And they have to adduce medical evidence to that degree. If somebody's riding a bike, they don't have their helmet, and they sustain a pelvic fracture, well, that defense wouldn't apply because firstly, the helmet would have not had any impact in relation to that injury. It's more so in relation to head injuries or brain injuries where the helmet comes into play. I think anybody who looks at any legitimate studies out there, clearly a helmet does reduce and prevent brain injuries. As to whether or not it would have significantly reduced the injury or prevented it in the circumstances that happens when a cyclist hit by a 2-ton vehicle, well, that's a bigger question to be asked by the medical doctors. So even when the defense is advanced, it's had very little success, certainly here in Ontario. If the defense is successful, what it really means is you could lose approximately somewhere between 5 and 15% of your award because you contributed to your injury by not having a helmet, and they were successful with evidence from a medical doctor proving that it would have significantly reduced or prevented the injury itself. So anyways, that's helmets. I hope this helped. Any questions, let me know. We can address them.